This is the Audi S5 Sportback, and it is, in effect, a 5-door, slightly more expensive version of the regular S4 sedan. However, there are some detailed differences which help make this one of the best cars Audi makes. Before we get into it, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your favourite Audi in the comments down below. We'll have a look at the inside, go for a drive, but before that, let's have a look at the exterior. There are a few things Audi does really well, and sheet metal is one of them. Now, I'm not an engineer, but these body lines are apparently really hard to produce accurately. Look how crisp they are, and they all line up beautifully as well. It's not hard to see why traditional sedans are struggling when manufacturers are offering these kind of 4-door coupe things. You may disagree, of course, but to my eyes, this is a much more attractive car than your traditional 3-box sedan. The S5 Sportback starts at $106,377 RRP, which is a $7,000 premium over the S4. But for your money, you get 20-inch wheels rather than 19s, which are also a ½ inch wider and 10mm wider tyres. Now the S5 is actually a little bit smaller in every dimension except track, which is the width between the wheels. This increases 22mm to give the car a wider footprint on the road. The other difference is in boot space, the hatchback body increasing luggage capacity from 420 litres to 480. It's a pretty cavernous space actually, with this cubby hole on the right, luggage net to keep everything tied down, and the rear seat splits 40-20-40 for added flexibility. The rear tailgate is also electrically operated. Options are relatively few. Any colour other than basic white is $1,990. You can get various bits of trim in black and carbon. There are 3-wheel designs and fancy laser headlights. It's a similar story inside. Pretty much everything is standard, but you can option carbon inlays, a panoramic sunroof and heated rear seats, though this car doesn't have the last two. Despite the coupe roofline, I've actually got heaps of space in here. There's a pair of USB inputs for device charging, separate temperature controls, and this fold-down centre armrest with some storage space and very over-engineered cup holders. The S5 is fresh from a facelift, and the majority of the changes have been focused up here in front. Basically, every possible safety system is now standard, including a 360-degree camera. Now let me focus on this for a second, because if you've never seen it before, it's pretty mind-blowing. No, there's not a drone hovering above the car. Instead, there are 4 wide-angle cameras which capture the area around the car, and then a top-down view is superimposed into the middle. Pretty clever stuff. Aside from this, actually, I'm just going to read it because the list is way too long. Adaptive cruise control with speed limiter and stop-and-go functions, lane assist, park assist, pre-collision warning front and rear, autonomous emergency braking, collision avoidance assist, rear cross traffic alert, exit warning system and turn assist. Now, that's a lot of assists. Of course, it must still be possible to have an accident in an S5, but you'd have to be trying pretty damn hard. The second part of the update is this new 10.1-inch infotainment screen, which is basically like having a tablet stuck to your dashboard. I find Audi's MMI system one of the more intuitive to use. Obviously with this amount of tech there's always going to be menus within menus, but it's usually pretty easy to quickly find what you're looking for. It's high-res enough to be nice and clear and quick to respond to inputs. There's also wired and wireless smartphone mirroring and charging. When you hear about Audi's reputation for building fine interiors, this is usually what's being referred to. Yes, of course the S5 Sportback is an expensive car, but it also feels expensive in here. I've got soft leather and these quilted seats and beautiful carbon fibre. To me, this is the perfect mix of old and new. I've got the new infotainment touchscreen and virtual cockpit, but also physical controls for the aircon and seat heaters and lights, albeit with a couple of exceptions. Mostly Audi builds cars in left-hand drive, and I suspect it doesn't swap these buttons. The drive select buttons are all the way over here, whereas the closest button to me turns this screen off. Another weird quirk, Audi has hidden the fuel gauge. Once you know where it is, it only takes a couple of moments to find, but why do I always need to know my engine temperature and boost pressure, but not how much fuel I have? Anyway, let's go and burn some. Alrighty, a quick word on the specs. I've got a 3-litre turbocharged V6 producing 260 kilowatts and 500 Newton meters with an 8-speed automatic gearbox and all-wheel drive. Audi claims 4.8 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour and 8.8 litres per 100 Ks combined fuel consumption. There's a really impressive duality to the S5 Sportback, with two sides to its personality depending on whether you're driving slowly or quickly. So let's start with the former. There are 4 drive modes to choose from: Comfort, Auto, Dynamic and Individual, which allows you to mix and match. These alter the engine response and sound, gearbox mapping, weight of the steering and stiffness of the suspension. Comfort is accurately named. The ride can still be a little bit jittery, but the majority of bumps are absorbed nicely. It's a good balance for what is still a sporty model. The steering is light, the gearbox is smooth. It's an easy, relaxing car to drive. Where the S5 really impresses though is on the other side of the ledger. Fast Audis are strange. Some are absolutely brilliant and others bitterly disappointing. And the gulf between the two is so wide that it's kind of hard to reconcile the fact that they're both from the same company. Happily, this thing is really, really good. Unlike some Audis, selecting Dynamic doesn't ruin it. Yes, the steering gets heavier and the suspension firmer, but just the right amount. You don't end up fighting the car. There is lots of good stuff here, starting with the engine. Reminds me of a BMW Straight 6 actually, in both the way it sounds and the way it performs, which is quite a compliment. It's smooth and powerful, and because peak torque arrives from under 1400 RPM, yet peak power continues till 6400 RPM, you've got this massive power band to work with. The gearbox is slick enough, although it auto upshifts even in manual mode, but the real highlight is the S5's handling. Now, before I get into this, it's important to note that this car is fitted with the optional $2,990 Sports Quattro differential. The regular Quattro system can adjust power front to rear, but the Sports Diff can also adjust it between the left and right rear wheels. As you drive along, the computer is constantly making adjustments as to where the power should go, but as a driver, it simply gives you options. The steering is quick and accurate, if a little numb around the straight ahead, but the front end grips strongly and the car continues to rotate, which means you can enter corners with confidence. Now the diff comes into play. Because it's clever, when you press the throttle it doesn't pull you wide, instead continuing to rotate the car towards the exit. This not only makes it quicker, but more entertaining too. I guarantee you'll be surprised at how hard you can hustle one of these things. Really good sports ESP system too, letting the car move around subtly, but keeping that safety net in place. This thing is just way more entertaining to drive than most will give it credit for. Now, of course, the S5 Sportback isn't perfect, but its foibles feel pretty insignificant when you consider what it does well. Looks good, can carry 4 adults in comfort, has plenty of luggage space, a great interior, heaps of tech, can hit 100 k's an hour in less than 5 seconds, and is really, really entertaining to drive. Put simply, as I mentioned at the top, it's one of the best cars Audi makes.